Beneath the Stone Face, a D&D short story loosely based on the world of Dungeons & Dragons Online. Written and narrated by Alex Kavarik, aka Axel. "Another, please," Akkius inquired of the bartender at the Drowning Sorrows Tavern. An appropriate name, as Akkius had not had anything resembling work in weeks, and his mood was reflective as such. An esteemed adventurer, Akkius was known by many as one of the true masters of the art of dual-wielding the bastard sword among the inhabitants of House Jarasco. As a human fighter focused on the wielding of larger swords by training, he was originally assigned to specialty operations during the Devil invasion of Eberron. But in the time following the Devil's defeat, he found himself lacking of purpose. Traveling around Eberron, his home continuously changing, he scurried up any and all work as a mercenary to keep his belly full and his head dry. A rather shy man, and not one to find much comfort in the presence of others, he preferred to spend nights such as these alone in the local bar. "Thank you, sir," Akkius muttered as the bartender handed him another drink. A bubbling brown froth, while not one of the best beverages at the tavern, was certainly one of the cheapest. Its taste leaves much to be desired, but right now Akkius desired what platinum he had left in his pocket more than taste. Akkius decided it's best not to peer too closely at the beverage, should he spot an ingredient he rather disliked. It's already been bought, it's better to not know, should there be an ingredient that would change his mind about indulging. The beer fulfilled its purpose to wash away another day of adventures left unrun, of money left unearned. Tonight was a particularly empty night, the bar void of patrons. Akkius remained still and quiet by his lonesome at the center southern end of the bar, just in front of the entrance. While the bar was mostly empty, there were a few notable faces. There was a local barfly, Old Man Newton, a rather drunk and smelly human, guzzling his brew just over Akkius's right shoulder. His stench was quite unbecoming. It's surprising he is still allowed in so frequently. In the northeastern corner of the bar, a dwarf maiden, whose demeanor contrasted that of Newton's quite drastically, sipped her beverage alone. Akkius had seen her before. Sylvia Stonewarden was one of the richer folk hailing from House Kundarak. She had made quite a fortune in banking. Her exact role in relation to the Corn Lords was unknown, but she was from one of the more well-known families of the house. On Akkius's left sat Mira Partholkar, a human woman who knew Akkius all too well. A quest months ago that Akkius accepted from her did not pay well. Had he known her complaints about odd noises in the middle of the night, keeping her awake, would consist of more than kicking a kobold or two out of her basement, he'd not have bothered. As Akkius stood up and made his way to the exit, he was greeted by Brother Devonian. The human cleric was dressed in chain armor in the typical blue and white garb representing the silver flame covering it in the center. Devonian had a thick brow and gleaming orange hair, tied back in a bow rather restrictively. He was known in House Jarasco for his strong and eccentric personality. While most clerics tended to spend their days quietly at prayer, Devonian tended to spend his days running around through Stormreach, serving whatever purpose the silver flame demanded. Perhaps his personality is the reason he's sent out so much, as to not disturb the meditation of the other priests. "Akkius, my good man, what brings you here on such an overcast evening such as this?" "I've nothing better to do, brother," Akkius responded. "Well, great to hear, because I require the service of an adventurer such as yourself." "What's the work?" Akkius replied. "As you know, we brothers of the Silver Flame are on a continuous quest, one to fight the darkness, all evil, and keep it at bay should its shadow become large enough to cast the entirety of Stormreach in blackness. We have a problem locally that the Silver Flame wants to see taken care of. A cleric such as myself requires the assistance of someone more, let's say, formidable?" "Go on," Akkius insisted. "I came to House Jarasco specifically because a group of trolls has been said to have made their way here from Sorodusk Isle by paying for passage from pirates inhabiting Three Barrel Cove, an island farther to the east of Sorodusk. Their leader, Rujin, an oddly white-haired troll, is said to live not far from here. He must be taken care of." "Taken care of?" Akkius questioned. "Do I need to say it? The foul beast needs to leave Eberron. Permanently." "Why? What's he done? Trolls can be quite the nuisance, but killing them seems harsh without proper cause." "As I said, Akkius, the Silver Flame is dedicated to fighting and ridding this world of all evil. Rujin's band has taken hold of an ancient spell book, allowing them to raise the dead in all kinds of twisted ways. Skeletons, wraiths, and other undead have been spotted by the townsfolk. We cannot allow this. We must reacquire this spellbook so that these raisings stop. We cannot tolerate the actions of Rujin. He must be killed to set an example for the rest of these trolls. With him dead, I expect the rest of them to return to their home on Sorodusk, as without their leader or their spellbook, they would no longer have purpose here. You can't handle a single troll, Akkius responded. Have you not advanced in your study of holy magics? Surely you can summon a flame storm or a flame strike. Trolls do have a vulnerability against fire, you know. As a man of a rather large ego, Devonian's posture rose noticeably straighter as he stared down Akkius in response to the challenge. Obviously, but they also have miraculous powers of regeneration. And this job won't be as easy as you think. This won't be an easy assassination. Besides, a priest like me takes no chances. I prefer to leave that risk with someone else. I am not a man of limited means. It seems like you need the money, judging by the poor condition of the leather armor on your back. Had you not been sporting those two huge swords on each side of your waist, I'd mistaken you for a peasant. You're correct. I do need the money, Akkius responded. But it depends on the amount. Devonian reached into his pocket and shoved a large brown bag of platinum into Akkius's chest. Half now, half once we've finished. I'll meet you at the front of this bar tomorrow at noon. You clearly need a good night's sleep. By your appearance, it seems you've had far too much of that disgusting brown froth the bartender calls a brew. Not being able to afford rent at the inn, Akkius wandered back to where he had spent the night previously, under a large tree in Cold Lake Pond, not too far from the bar. While not as comfortable as the inn, the spare blanket he carried with him sufficed. Besides, the tree was rather homey. Something about it seemed special. It seemed to give Akkius a new sense of life every morning upon awakening. Despite the platinum already given to him by Devonian being plenty to cover a night's stay at the inn, the money was better spent elsewhere. The summer air blew calm and gently, and the breeze encompassing the blackness of night was quite cool and comfortable. Akkius lay down beside the tree and let the calmness of sleep overtake him. The next morning came fast. Akkius slept past his normal hours, no doubt a result of the brew ingested just 9 hours ago. Luckily, there was no concern, as the sun in the sky had not been visible for long, and there should be no waiting from Devonian at the tavern. "Aye, Akkius!" hailed Devonian as Akkius stumbled his way back to the entrance of the Drowning Sorrows Tavern. Beside Devonian was a female elf. Her face was mostly hidden by a cotton hood, but her gleaming blonde hair and her elven ears remained partially exposed. "This is Lena Petlin, a master of many skills we should find useful down there," as Devonian motioned to a location behind the bar. Lena made no acknowledgement of Akkius's presence. She seemed to be glaring intensely through the items in her satchel. "What do you mean, down there?" Akkius inquired. "Come, I'll show you," said Devonian. The party of 3 made their way behind the bar. Devonian led, followed by a still stoic Lena, as Akkius quickly paced to follow. Walking behind the bar, they arrived at a giant stone face, seemingly the mascot for the local bar. The silver-covered rock making up the sculpture formed a slightly depressing expression that symbolized the name of the tavern quite well. Lena opened the satchel she was so intensely studying just minutes before, pulled out 3 iron tools, and climbed her way on top of the large face. Akkius heard the movement of rock as Lena twisted and prodded her way around the apex of the sculpture. After a few minutes, the ground below Akkius's feet lightly vibrated, and a loud click of a door was heard, splitting the stone face in 2 vertically and exposing a spiral staircase. Devonian turned to Akkius and said, "These tunnels were formed by kobold workers many years ago, and we generally keep this entrance sealed and access to any part of the tunnels completely restricted. To my knowledge, this is the only entrance to these tunnels. However, based on the reports of townsfolk spotting wraiths through the passing of this very face, Rujin has apparently found his way to these tunnels through some other means." From the tunnel blew a cool air, much cooler than the summer air swirling around above ground. The staircase was made of the same rock from which the stone face was carved. Devonian reached to his side and pulled out a small scepter. "Medisa, Smoga, Haisish!" Devonian shouted. Instantly, the scepter was bestowed with a strong angelic white light. He handed the scepter to Lena. "There, that'll make it easier to see down there," Devonian muttered smugly as he handed the scepter to Lena, clearly wanting to show off his skills as a divine spellcaster. Lena led the way naturally, scepter in hand. The elf was still as quiet as ever, yet to say a word since the party's formation. Akkius closely followed behind and was trailed by Devonian, who felt much more comfortable being the last in line in the party. The staircase continued half a mile down, leading the party into a wet cavern smelling of stale air. Once the party reached the bottom, a thicker and less pleasant stench emerged. The bottom of the stairwell touched the ground of the cave, in the middle of a small circular room with a diameter of no more than 15 feet. The rocky walls shone of stalactites and stalagmites. The entire cavern thus far resembled a giant cylinder, the top being connected by the long staircase previously descended. There was only one path out of the room, a corridor leading north. Akkius stepped off the final stair onto the cavern floor, followed immediately by Devonian. "I'll have to wash my shoes later on for sure," murmured the cleric. Akkius looked down and noticed strips of hair attached to his boots, the hair bonded to his shoes with a layer of dull red blood. He also noticed spots of blood glistening around him on the cavern floor. "Looks like some kind of fight happened here," stated Akkius. Suddenly, the elf turned and squatted on the surface, one knee touching the ground as she set the still glowing scepter lighting up the room onto the ground. As she kneeled, she placed the finger of her right hand in the blood and gave what she collected a short smell. "No," said the rogue as she rose her other arm and pointed her unbloodied hand north. "Judging by the linear trail pointing towards that corridor, and the blood's narrow, even distribution within the path, it's more likely an animal carcass that was pulled through here, probably the reap of a hunt. And most likely a handful of rabbits, judging by the color and texture of the hair. If there was a fight in this room, the blood would be much more widespread." Akkius was pleasantly surprised that she had broken her silence. "You're a tracker?" Akkius inquired. "Yes, you'll find I'm quite resourceful, a woman of many skills." "Akkius," Devonian interceded. "Lena is here because she knows the cave system far better than I. It's quite easy to get lost down here, and as I told you before, I am not a man of limited means. I'm not about to try and find my way through here myself with a shoddy old map, no doubt put together by some stupid kobold. And as large and dangerous as this expanse is, getting lost is a danger not to be taken lightly." "We better get going," Lena declared as she wiped the blood from her hands on the wall of the cave. The small room opened up into a larger space. Exiting the corridor, the group entered into the single doorway north. The stalactites and stalagmites populating the prior room paled in comparison to the display in this section of the cave. Stepping in cautiously, Akkius looked overhead to see a rock formation larger than the tavern hundreds of feet above it on the surface. "Devonian, how do I not know about this? I was expecting a small singular passageway, but you could fit a whole city down here," Akkius shouted with excitement. "Akkius, keep your voice down," Lena insisted. "We're looking for one troll. I don't want to attract the attention of many more, or whatever else might—" Before Lena could finish her sentence, the entire group noticed at once a distinctive moan coming from the west. Immediately, Akkius dropped to the ground and his action was followed by the others, Lena still just ahead, and Devonian a few feet behind. Lena quickly covered Devonian's scepter as the group took refuge behind a rather large stalagmite. The echoes of the footsteps off the cavern walls could be heard coming from about 100 feet away. The sound began to grow louder, and then louder still. Akkius placed one hand on each of his swords. The footsteps drew closer, until the creature could be heard loudly and clearly. There were no words, but the familiar sound of a troll breathing was not one prone to confusion. But as soon as the trolls arrived, they turned around and made their way back west. After several minutes, the group emerged back from behind the stalagmite, the threat long since gone. "What was that?" Devonian questioned angrily. "Akkius, I hired you to slay trolls, not to hide like a coward. Same goes for you, Lena. That's part of your job description as well." "Priest, your memory deceives you," Lena stated as she once again allowed Devonian's scepter to light the area around the group. "I've been hired to kill one troll, no more and no less. If you want me to kill more, pay me more. If not, I'll continue on my mission." "Brother, there was no point in engaging that troll in combat," Akkius explained. "Like you said, once we take care of their leader, the beasts should make their way back off our lands. I agree with you that these trolls need to go, but there's no point in killing them should we not have to. Besides, it's obvious that's not the one we're looking for. His hair was not white." Devonian's anger began to intensify. Cowards! I don't care what I told you before. These trolls are evil and must be washed away. Rugin is the primary target, but the more that die, the cleaner the lands of Eberron become. Then you should have killed him yourself. Or did you hire us because your magical abilities aren't capable? Akkius questioned. Devonian pulled his hand out of his pocket, and it began to flow brightly with a hot, red flame. Akkius reached down and again put his hands on his blades. Gentlemen, stop acting so childish. Let's get back to the mission. The sooner we finish, the sooner we can get back to Drowning Sorrows and argue about this over a pint. Besides, didn't I tell you both already to stop being so loud? You both need to shut up or you'll for sure have to fight when those trolls come back. They can't be stupid enough to believe the sound coming from this way was nothing if it is heard twice. Devonian regrettably backed down, lowering his hand. You're right, of course, Akkius stated. Lena, shall we make our way west and follow our would-be attackers? Of course. You don't have to be a tracker to know that's exactly where we need to go. If there's a main base down here, he's likely heading towards it. The group remained silent and talk ceased as the group continued to make their way through the cave. The further the group ventured into the abyss, the darker and more macabre the environment became. Unable to use Devonian's light, the group carefully made their way through the next few rooms, keeping the troll at about a 300 feet distance. The group followed the monster for about 15 minutes through the underground corridors. The cave was very still and quiet, but suddenly the sounds of combat could be both seen and heard. The troll moaned loudly in the distance. Thuds and grunts coming from the beast reverberated through the cavern. Seems he's run into some trouble, Devonian stated, no longer seeing the need to remain dead quiet. After a few minutes, the sounds ceased. The group hastily made their way to the scene of the fight. To the group's surprise, the troll lay dead on the floor. The body was just a few yards away from a large drop to the west, a pit deep enough that one would surely be dead should they be plunged into it. Blood was still leaking from a puncture wound in the stomach. The group stayed at the ready, and Akkius once again placed his hands on his swords, but this time pulled them both out of their holsters. Damn, Lena muttered frustratingly. I can't believe it. Lena, don't worry about it. We'll find our way without the troll, Akkius stated. It was a deer. What are you talking about? Akkius questioned. Looking down at the bag attached to the troll, the leg of a deer was slightly visible. I thought it was a rabbit the troll was carrying. Apparently, I was wrong. That's what you're worried about? Devonian interjected. We just lost our one way to Rugin, and you're concerned about the animal it's carrying? I'm a tracker. I take pride in my skills. When I make a mistake, it bothers me. I certainly care more about that than finding this white-haired troll. If I didn't need the money, I wouldn't be down here. Shut up, Akkius whispered loudly. Something killed this troll. Whatever it is, it must be close still. The rustle of rock could be heard to the north. As the adventurers looked towards that direction and away from the dead body, 3 undead skeletons carrying weapons also made of bone could be seen walking towards the group. Akkius gripped his swords tightly as Lena pulled out her daggers and a sphere of light started to form around Devonian's palm. The undead charged towards the group. The creatures had no armor. They were simply the remains of humans only, no doubt a product of Rugin's religious mischief. Their bone weapons appeared to be sharpened femurs of other human skeletons. The creatures approached in a triangle-like formation. A single skeleton was at the front, with 2 following several yards behind. Akkius took the front as he met the first skeleton. The creatures were not carrying the most high quality of weapons, and the bone sword cracked slightly as Akkius lunged forward, the steel of his right bastard sword making a loud clash. Akkius spun to his left and struck the right leg of the creature. The leg shattered immediately, the density of the bone having been compromised by natural decomposition over time. As the creature fell to its right as a result of the fighter's blow, Akkius struck its skull using his left bastard sword with a finishing blow. The skull shattered immediately, and the remaining structure of the creature fell to the ground, becoming motionless. While Akkius was engaged in combat, Lena engaged the westernmost skeleton, following just behind the first. Lena was equipped with not 1, but 2 daggers. Unfortunately for her, this was not the best weapon to have in an engagement such as this, facing enemies with no flesh. The skeleton made the first attack, and Lena blocked the bone blade by bringing together both daggers to stop its path towards her chest. Lena pushed her daggers towards the skeleton while blocking, and the skeleton lost a few feet of its ground as it stumbled backwards. The skeleton made a second attack with the same result, its bone short sword being met by a wall of 2 daggers. Lena pushed back again, and the skeleton once again stumbled backwards, but this time its feet met the body of the deceased troll, and the skeleton fell backwards into the precipice to the west. After several moments, a loud thud could be heard as the creature met the cavern floor deep below. The third skeleton had made its way towards Devonian, as Akkius and Lena were already engaged. Help!" shouted Devonian. The priest, while being seemingly prepared, had no desire to put himself at risk in combat. The priest rushed backwards as the skeleton made its way towards the cleric. Devonian continued to make his way backwards until his back met a cavern wall where he could retreat no further. The skeleton was now only a few feet away from Devonian and swung its sword at his head. Devonian, sporting surprisingly good reflexes for a priest, ducked below the swing. His hand still glowing with a divine white light, the cleric, in a panic, plunged his hand up and into the creature's ribcage, entering just below the sternum. As he did so, the white light instantly dissolved the bone of the creature and shattered the upper torso of the corpse. No longer having support, the neck, head, and all remaining structures from the waist down fell apart in 3 separate piles and became motionless. Devonian stepped away and breathed a sigh of relief, wiping the sweat from his brow. "And I thought you couldn't fight," said Lena as she made her way over to the priest, stepping over the remains of the creature destroyed by Devonian's divine magic. "How many times do I have to tell you? I can fight, but I'd rather those I pay to protect me do the fighting." As Akkius made his way over to join the group, he interceded. "Brother, what in the hell was that?" "Products of Rujin's carelessness, no doubt. The troll is practicing magic recklessly. He doesn't care what happens to the dead he raises. The trolls have no deep and complex agenda. They simply raise the dead because they enjoy doing it, even if the product of that magic is a threat to and kills their own brethren. Like a child who has found a dangerous new toy." Devonian motioned towards the dead troll laying to the west. "This is exactly why we must stop this foolishness. These undead are a threat to all of Eberron, not just the trolls that create them, but to innocent citizens as well. I am glad a troll was the victim this time, but next time it could be a human." Akkius nodded. "I agree, brother. I only came on this quest because of the money, but I'm starting to agree with you. This does need to stop. We can't have creatures like those we just slew wandering around our homes. We've got a bigger issue now, though. That troll over there was our only lead to Rujin's base." "Maybe not," said Lena optimistically. "There is light up ahead, and I can smell the scent of burning campfires." "Lena, I see and smell nothing," said Devonian, and Akkius nodded in agreement. "I've been doing this for many years, and my senses are more developed as such. Trust me, it's not too far ahead. Let's get moving so we can get this job done." The group had traveled seemingly half a mile away from the remains of the troll and the slain undead who they left lying to the west. The elf had broken away from the group, making her way a few hundred feet ahead, eager to scout. Suddenly, she hid Devonian's scepter in her satchel, shielding her location. Before doing so, she motioned back to the cleric and fighter, stopping her progress to crouch behind a large boulder. As Akkius made his way to the boulder, he quickly noticed why the elf was crouching and joined her on the cavern floor. Devonian followed behind and also dropped to the floor. Behind the boulder was exactly what the group had been looking for. An encampment was clearly visible about 100 yards below in an underground valley, being lit up by multiple torches and a single large campfire in the center. The encampment contained a few huts, and just beside the huts there was a variety of totems stacked just in front of a small, separate cavern to the north. There was a single troll standing outside the campfire who appeared to be eating. There was a variety of wooden clubs laying on the ground, no doubt the primary weapons the trolls used on their hunts. With the 3 party members entrenched behind the boulder, Lena looked at Devonian. "I could smell that fire from half a mile away. Is this what we're looking for?" The cleric responded, "No doubt. Those totems by the north are covered in symbols representing the gods of these creatures' dark religion. There's a good chance that cavern contains what we're looking for. Lena, do those elven senses of yours notice anything around but that one troll?" "No. There's some rustling a ways behind the camp, but it's coming from the ceiling, so it's likely just bats. Good. Let's get this job done then. Akkius, it's time for you to earn your keep. That troll by the fire is your responsibility. That is, unless you want me to keep that other half of your pay. Akkius responded, I think not. You said you needed to hire me to kill one troll. As Lena said earlier, killing more unnecessarily is not what we signed up for. Devonian breathed deeply in frustration. How are we going to get that book without killing him? As I said before, these totems outside the cave are full of religious symbols. This has to be their main camp. No doubt the spellbook we're looking for is inside, and I have a strong suspicion he's not going to just let us in there. What do you suggest? We go up to him and ask nicely? Akkius, I agree, Lena interjected. Surely one troll isn't too much for you to handle, and there's no way to get inside without disabling him. Fine, I'll throw in an extra bag of platinum. 1 bag per troll, Devonian declared. Being so close to his goal, he became more generous just to get the mission moving. Besides, that spellbook was worth far more than 1 bag of platinum. It is invaluable. Devonian, you have a deal, Akkius shrugged. I suppose you're both right. It appears we have no choice. To the east of the boulder was a spiral path, wrapping down on an incline leading towards the camp. The group carefully made its way down. As the group arrived at the base of the camp, they remained hidden behind the first hut in the encampment. The troll was still feasting away at his meal, about 45 degrees north of the group. The group was now close enough to see he was consuming deer. Perhaps this troll was part of the same hunt as the now dead troll met previously. Judging by the pool of blood that had accumulated at the monster's feet, it had not even bothered to cook the flesh, despite a campfire existing just a few feet away from it. Akkius, go, insisted Lena. Akkius nodded. Akkius quietly pulled both swords from his holster, being sure to not be heard. The sounds of the crackling campfire helped shield the fighter's approach as he dexterously tiptoed his way towards the fire. The troll remained oblivious, continuing to indulge in his meal. Akkius was so close now that he could feel the heat of the campfire on his face. The creature chewed and spit out a bone as Akkius got into a lunging position, still not knowing danger was just a few feet away. Suddenly, the troll quickly turned his head left, Akkius's dexterity having failed him at the last moment. The creature reached for its wood club to its left, but it was too late. Akkius, in one powerful motion, lunged the blade being held in his right hand into the center of the creature's back, impaling him from behind. The blade went through the troll's ribcage, and he fell lifeless, his body falling forward into the campfire. Well done, said Devonian enthusiastically, emerging from behind the hut and making his way towards the fighter. Akkius reached down and grabbed the feet of the slain troll and pulled it out of the campfire. He motioned towards Devonian. We don't want the smell of a burning carcass attracting the attention of the rest of this band. Lucky for us, it seems like we've caught this village at a time where most of the trolls are out hunting. A voice came from behind the group. Akkius and Devonian turned around quickly. The white troll Rujin, no doubt the one the group had been looking for, as albinos are just as rare in trolls as any other race, stood fiercely just outside the northern cave. The troll was standing just between the totems, having just emerged from the cave, no doubt having heard the final screams of the troll previously slain by Akkius. Akkius and Devonian looked in horror to see that his right hand was firmly grasped around the neck of Lena, her sneaky nature having betrayed her. He was holding the elf above the ground, her body dangling in the air. In his left hand, he held a book with a glossy black finish that reflected the light of the campfire back at the fighter's eyes. The troll was very intimidating. He was wearing leather armor that, while crude, was surprising to see, as most trolls did not wear any kind of body protection. He was much larger than most trolls, about a head taller than the troll laying dead by the fire. Akkius retightened his grip on his swords, and Devonian remained motionless, as he stood a few feet behind the fighter, intimidated by the presence of the troll leader. "Get out of my camp!" shouted Rujin. He was enraged upon seeing the dead body of his comrade. He turned and threw the elf to his left, and Lena landed with a thud, having been thrown about 15 feet across the cave by the strong, brutish troll. The rogue was motionless, apparently having been knocked unconscious. Whether by the way she landed on the cavern floor, or as a result of being deprived oxygen due to her neck being held tightly by Rujin, the rogue lay still on the cavern floor. Whether she was dead, Akkius did not know. Rujin dropped the black book on the floor in order to free up his hands for his large wooden club, which was attached to his waist. The club was approximately 5 feet long and was covered in bone spikes, which had apparently been sharpened and drilled into the body of the club. The troll charged forward towards Akkius and screamed fiercely as he did so. Akkius, quick to his reflexes, pulled up and readied himself for Rugin's charge. The troll struck first, his giant club being brought down on the fighter with great strength. Instinctively, Akkius crossed both of his swords, the right over the left, as he blocked the wooden club. The force was so great that his right bastard sword stuck into the club, and Akkius was knocked several feet backwards onto the ground. As the troll recovered and pulled his club back once again, he took the sword with him, it still being stuck in the giant wooden weapon. Akkius was unable to keep hold of it, losing to Rugin's massive strength as he fell backwards. In panic, Devonian ran about 10 feet backwards and summoned a burst of fire in his palm and shot it at the troll. However, in his panic, the priest missed, the beam of fire passing just over Rugin's left shoulder. Rugin noticed, and in his annoyance, pulled Akkius's sword out of his club and flung it at the cleric. The base end of the sword, luckily not the blade end, struck the priest's head and he fell backwards and lay still. Now alone, Akkius, having recovered from his fall to the ground, gripped his one remaining sword with 2 hands as he prepared to engage the troll leader once again. Akkius stayed at the defensive, the troll still screaming with rage. Having recovered from his throw, Rugin charged yet again. He brought down his club on Akkius for yet another blow. The fighter parried left, avoiding the troll's clumsy yet ferocious swing, and as he did so, turned his blade towards the beast and struck him from the side just above the waist. Rugin screamed in pain as he fell over and lay silent, apparently fatally wounded by the blow. Akkius breathed a sigh of relief as he examined the body of the albino troll to ensure he would not rise again. Satisfied, he made his way over to the cleric. Devonian was still lying on the ground, but his head had risen, apparently the sword that struck him having rendered him stunned rather than unconscious. "Good job! It appears the mission is complete. However, I was not supposed to fight. Don't think for a second that the rest of your pay won't reflect that," Devonian stated smugly. "You're welcome. It's not like I saved your life or anything," Akkius responded, slightly annoyed at the lack of appreciation shown by the priest. "Akkius, let's get this book and get out of here." As the two walked back towards the troll, they passed over the body into the area where the book had been dropped and Lena had been thrown. To their dismay, the book was gone, and as they looked for the body of the rogue, it was also nowhere to be found. All that was left was a few footprints leading away from the camp, the footprints becoming deep and more spread out the further away they went. Apparently, the rogue had been truthful all along. All she cared about was the money involved in this mission, and the most valuable prize to be had was not the platinum the priest was to provide, but the spellbook itself. The priest and the fighter sighed as they began to follow the footprints, knowing that their chances of tracking down a tracker were slim. The journey back to the surface was sure to be a long one.